Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the 605. I'm Jason Andera of 605 Sports, and I've been here all season long to get you to this point. Postseason has started in South Dakota high school basketball, and we're going to catch you up on what's happened in the regions, what to look forward to for the SODAC 16, and the few final regular season games that we have in a couple of classes of basketball as well. But let's start with catching up with Ryan Deal of 605 Sports. This is the time of the year, Ryan. We're into postseason play, especially on the girls' bracket side. Boys have a couple of days left to finish up stuff before we know how those seedings all pair. Let's focus a little bit more on some girls' basketball and talk about a couple of games that you're looking forward to. Let's start in Class B. The brackets, we're down to the games that lead up to earn a spot into the SODAC 16. What are you watching for on Thursday night?
Yeah, in Region 3B, you just look at the teams in that region that are still alive, and pretty safe to say that all four of them pretty legit contenders, and just some intriguing matchups that are going to take place in Madison. Number one is Ethan and Del Rapids St. Mary's, and then Coleman Egan and Sanborn Central Woonsocket. And it's kind of interesting, they're in the same region, but they did not play this year. Those teams, this is their first time, matching up this year. So I don't know if that means anything, but it's going to kind of adds a little interesting element. You think when you think of region matchups, you think of these teams, facing throughout the year. So certainly some unknown, as we go into those matchups. But we were just talking, Del Rapids St. Mary's played right with Centerville here not too long ago, and obviously Centerville, number one team, defending state champs. We know what they're about. And now they play Ethan, another contender in Class B. So going into that game, you're kind of intrigued by that just because of what Del Rapids St. Mary's has shown what they're capable of, especially coming down the stretch here. So that'll be an intriguing one. Coleman Egan girls are interesting to me. Two losses on the season, one to Hamlin, a very strong Class A opponent, and Freeman, who won 14, 15 games this season. So that Coleman Egan, Sanborn Central Woonsocket game will be very intriguing as well to me.
Yeah, those are two good games. I mean, like you said, the Cardinals played right with the Tornadoes. I think as close as anybody's played with the Tornadoes this year. So that could be dangerous. But this Ethan team is playing really, really well lately, too. I think you bring up a couple of really good matchups. In Class A, they're also at the same point, a game to punch their ticket into the SODAC 16. What are you looking forward to in that class of games?
Yeah, let's go to Region 4A. Some DAC-12 teams. We know what the DAC-12 is all about in Class A basketball, and we certainly talked about that conference and deservedly so throughout the season. Sioux Falls Christian, Lennox, Dakota Valley, Vermilion. Obviously, again, some other intriguing matchups in that region with those two teams. And I think that Dakota Valley Vermilion has a chance to be just a whale of a game. Played earlier this season. Vermilion won that game. So I think that's really going to be one that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And in Sioux Falls Christian and Lennox, again, they're familiar with each other. They play each other every year. So that's definitely a region in those two matchups that you kind of want to keep an eye on here on Thursday night.
You bring up a good point. You've got three of basically the top five teams in the state with Dakota Valley, Vermilion, Sioux Falls Christian, and then we talked about Region 3B too with some outstanding teams. Do you like the way the SODAC 16 does this? Is there anything about the way we do playoffs that you might have a suggestion on, or do you think this is the fairest way to get them to the state tournament?
I honestly kind of go back and forth on that. The SODAC 32, I know that's been thrown out there as an idea, and then obviously right now we have the SODAC 16. I guess I see it from both sides. One thing I'll say is I've seen some people kind of recently say our region has 4 of the top 8 or 4 of the top 10 teams when it comes to seed points. And I guess what I'll say to that is that does not guarantee you a spot, into the state tournament. You don't get an automatic bid if you finish the season, one of the top, 4 teams out of 10 teams in a region or whatever. To me, that's great and all, but when it gets to the postseason and the seed points, I think they mean nothing. I just think you still got to go out and you still got to go win some games. So that's kind of my stance on it. I've seen some people recently kind of say stuff like that, and to me that doesn't guarantee you anything. It's not an automatic bid. You still got to go win some games. So that's me kind of getting on the soapbox about the 16 and the 32. But I kind of personally, I do like what we have now. But if it were to go to a Sodak 32, I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, I think most coaches would say exactly what you did. We still got to go out and win these games. So we appreciate you following all these games for us, and it'll be a lot of fun to keep up with Ryan Deal and 605 Sports over the next couple of weeks and see how this thing unravels. Thanks again for being with us, Ryan.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you later, Jason.
Thanks once again to Ryan Deal, 605 Sports. Make sure you go check out all of his stuff. Always great to read that. Let's look at the game changers from the last 7 days, but I've made an exception this week. I'm pushing it back for the last 9 days because last Tuesday there were a few performances that I had not registered yet that came into me a little bit late last week that we're going to include on this week's Game Changers list. Let's get started in girls basketball with Jada Balloon. Yes, the youngster out of Highmore Herald has been blowing up over the last week. Against Ipswich, helped her team to a 5-point victory, went for 30 points and 10 rebounds in that game. And then Tuesday against Potter County, another big game, 27 points and 11 rebounds, a couple of double-doubles, approaching back-to-back 30-point games for Jada Balloon. She has been phenomenal. Let's talk about Lennox Dupree having a phenomenal season for Pierre, and they're playing their best basketball right now, partly because of her. They got a 1-point victory last Friday against Mitchell, and in the process, she went for a triple-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and helped her team beat a ranked team in the top 5 by just 1 point. Lennox Dupree, you are a stud. Keep up the good work. Shania Ferguson has been on this list several times, went for another 30-point game, 32 points against Crow Creek on Thursday. Ashlyn Copel, another one who's a regular on this list, continues to impress. Had a huge game against Platte Geddes, 28 points, 15 boards, and 5 assists. Addie Neuendorf of Hamlin, 25-point game against Clark Willow Lake, but in the process, 7 3-pointers. She was unstoppable from beyond the arc. Huge win for her team, Hamlin, on Thursday night, 79-59 over Clark Willow Lake. Olivia Paget, and in AA especially, it's hard to get those 20-point games or 25-point games. Well, Olivia Paget continues to get 25-point game after 25-point game. She has become one of the best scorers in all of AA basketball. 25 points, 4 assists on Saturday in their 63-47 win over Harrisburg. Taylor Roovers had her biggest game of the year, 32 points, 13 rebounds for the youngster playing point guard in a 71-36 win over Canton. Let's move to the boys' game changers now, and Ruben Alvarez has been really good, a bright spot on this Redfield team that has struggled to put marks in the win column, but not because of what he's done. A 26-point, 15 rebound, 11 assist game. Yes, another triple-double. One of the themes of this week is triple-doubles, but he did that against Tio Spazina, and then also went for a 33-point game against Aberdeen Christian on Monday. So in those two games, nearly going for 60 points and logging a triple-double. Congratulations, Ruben. Bryson Bruning went for a 30-point game as they dominated Mount Vernon Plankinton on Thursday night. 31 points, 5 assists in the process. Parkston having a phenomenal season at 15-5. Emmett Dinger of Wall. This guy absolutely blew up over the last 2 games. 35 points, including 10 3-point baskets, 3-point field goals in his win over Belfouche. And then came back on Monday night with a 32-point, 5 3-point performance in a 70-56 win over Kadoka. So 2 quality wins for Wall, and Emmett Dinger playing a huge part in both of those wins with 2 30-plus point games. Spencer Karstens of Gayville-Vollen, a 35-point game with 7 rebounds and 5 steals as they got a 61-51 win over Avon on Monday. Big win for the Gayville-Vollen Raiders. Marvin Richard III, he just continues to put up huge numbers. He's having a fantastic junior season. For him, kind of a ho-hum 39-point game, the largest point total on the Game Changers list, and it's something that Marvin Richard does and makes look very easy on a nightly basis. 84-68 win on Thursday over Todd County. And then Marcus Talley, another one, we'll reach back to last Tuesday because the initial stats I got, he got 23 points, but I didn't also see that he had 10 rebounds and 11 assists. So a triple-double in their win over Sioux Falls, Washington last week, and boy, did they need it. A big win for Mitchell to stay near the top of Class AA. We'll talk a little bit more about Mitchell and all the classes coming up later in the show. Here's how we're going to do it this week. A lot of times we just talk about big games coming up. We're going to go through each and every class and tell you what to look for in the coming days in each of those classes. Let's start in girls basketball, Class B. The regions are underway, and in fact, on Thursday night, we're going to decide who makes it to the SODAC 16 in all 8 regions. Let's start with Region 1B. The top seeds are Northwestern and Warner. Wilmot got a slight upset to get into that game against Northwestern, but both of those 2 games should be a lot of fun. In Region 2B, Thursday, we've got Arlington taking on DeSmet. Now, Dubrook and DeSmet are the top 2 seeds here, but Arlington has had a fantastic season last year. Jalen Huntemer, a terrific scorer, going up against DeSmet's terrific scorer in Hazel Luthmers. 2 outstanding talents in Class B are going to go up one-on-one on Thursday night to see who gets to go to the SODAC 16. In Region 3B, maybe the top game to look for in all of Class B, we've got Sanborn Central Woonsocket at 18-3, having to go into Madison and play the number 2 seed in 3B, Coleman Egan, at 19-2. Now, the Blackhawks, they've won 6 in a row. Their only losses this year, they stumbled against Corsica Stickney and then lost to Lyman and Parkson, 2 highly ranked teams in Class B. Coleman Egan quietly has put together a 13-game winning streak, and their only losses this year were early in the season when they lost to Freeman and Hamlin, 2 really stout teams, and Hamlin, of course, one of the best teams in Class A. So I think Coleman Egan coming in under the radar a little bit in this one, going in against Sanborn Central Woonsocket, who has their sights set on, not just a trip to the SODAC 16, but a trip to state and maybe do some damage there. So the winner of this game is going to be a team to watch out for in Class B for sure. And in that game, we've got stars as well with Brindley Landis, Kaylee Volker. Those 2 combined for about 34 points per game, and Brindley Landis, one of the top players in the class with 20 points a game. And then you got Liz Boshi, Kaylee Robinson, Alexa Gertz. I mean, they've been outstanding for Sanborn Central Woonsocket, a complete team effort each and every night that they come out and play. So really looking forward to that 3B matchup. In 4B, congrats to Gayville Vollen. They won 52-50 over Freeman. And then Avon also got a little bit of an upset in their 42-38 win over Viborg Hurley. Centerville and Parkson, though, are the clear favorites to advance in 4B. And those 2 teams, GV and Avon, will have their hands full against the Centerville and Parkson games in 4B. In 5B, the top seeds, Lyman and Andy Central Dakota Christian. I think both those 2 teams could do some damage in the state tournament as well. They are the clear favorites in this game. In Region 6B, the top seeds are Highmore Herald and Teospe Topa. I think those 2 teams are looking good in 6B. And 7B, so far, we've had all the top seeds advance. Bennett County and Kadoka seem to be the favorites at the 1 and 2 seeds in that one. And then in Region 8B, we still have an undefeated team in Harding County. Now, they haven't really tested themselves with a tough schedule, but you go undefeated, that's worth something. So they're the top seed there, and then McLaughlin, a really strong number 2 seed as well in 8B. Let's move it to Class A talk now, and smaller regions here, and they're at the same point Thursday night trying to punch their ticket into the SODAC 16 coming up next week. Girls A, Region 1, we had the top seeds all advance. We've got Groton and Sisseton, though, who are going to be set up for a rematch in 1A. And these 2 teams very even. Groton actually won the first time they played back in December, 48-45. I think Sisseton has played one of the tougher schedules in Class A, and they look like they could be out for some revenge against Groton, but that's going to be a tough one on the road. Roncalli, by the way, the number 1 seed in 1A. In 2A, I think Hamlin and Sioux Valley look like the favorites here. Sioux Valley is a team, again, not mentioned in the top 5 much this year, but a lot of talent on that team. I would love to see them make a run into the SODAC 16 and possibly further. But Hamlin, of course, one of those teams that has been in the top 5, and they are definitely a team to watch out for, especially with the additions that they've had on their team this season. In 3A, Flandreau and Tri-Valley are the teams to watch. This is not as strong of a region as it has been in the just recent past, with West Central and Flandreau playing so well at so many tournaments in the last few seasons. But Tri-Valley does play West Central to get into the SODAC 16, and TV hasn't beat them in a long time. They'll be at home in this one and has a chance to punch their ticket into the SODAC 16 if they can get it done. In 4A, Lennox takes on Sioux Falls Christian. Sioux Falls Christian beat Lennox earlier this year by 13. That was really early in the season, but Lennox playing really well. Got a win in regions against Elk Point Jefferson, and Ryan Hansen went for 16 points with a perfect 6 for 6 from the field. She has the ability to take games over, and that will be somebody Sioux Falls Christian will have their hands full with. But Sioux Falls Christian, of course, one of the top teams in the state, probably the team that you're looking at when you're looking at 4A. The other game in 4A may be the game of the night. We've got Vermilion taking on Dakota Valley. Vermilion won the first time they played back in February, on February 11th, 71-63. Vermilion has now won 9 games in a row after a little stumble in the middle of the season. We've talked about them earlier on the show as a team that's really come on strong lately. Well, they definitely have. But the really tough ask to take on Dakota Valley, a team that's been in that top 5 almost all season long, right since the beginning. And they moved in there, and they've got a lot of young talent, a lot of veteran leaders on that team. I cannot wait till Dakota Valley takes on Vermilion. Should be an outstanding game. In Region 5A, Wagner and MVP seem to be the heavy favorites. MVP coming on really strong the last couple of weeks, and Wagner, of course, probably has the best player in the state in Ashlyn Copel, so look out for those two teams. In 6A, Mobridge, Pollock, and Miller seem to be the heavy favorites. I would be surprised if those two teams don't advance to the SODAC 16. In 7A, Makpialuta and Lakota Tech are the favorites. However, watch out for Winter. Winter is coming on strong. They've had some impressive wins here in their last couple of weeks. They got a win against Mobridge, Pollock, and McLaughlin, 2 contenders really in Class A, and got those wins. So Lakota Tech will have their hands full with Winter. Definitely not an automatic game here, but look for Lakota Tech and Makpialuta as the favorites in 7A. And then in Region 8A, St. Thomas More will play Hill City. St. Thomas More playing really well lately. And then Rapid City Christian takes on Belle Fourche. They have identical records coming into this one, but Rapid City Christian got the win just a couple of weeks ago, 57-50 against Belle Fourche. So maybe a mental edge for Rapid City Christian, but it's tough to beat the same team twice within a span of a couple weeks. In girls AA, we have not reached the SODAC 16 yet. Each team has 1 or 2 games left here in the next few days to see how the seedings will ramp up. But the storyline is O'Gorman, still undefeated. They are 19-0 in the season, have 1 game left against Mitchell. If they get that win, that would be their 44th win in a row, coming off a state championship last year and coming back with a lot of new faces this year, but still as good or better than last year's team. Stevens, by the way, taking on Washington on Friday night. This should be an excellent game. Right now, the 3 and 4 seeds in seed points. It's going to be a lot of fun to see if one of those two teams could kind of get the other one, and that would be a huge win either way. Both those two teams really looking for a signature victory. The 8 teams that are going to be home teams are pretty much set. We've got O'Gorman, Brandon Valley, Washington, Stevens, Mitchell, Spearfish, Pierre, and then Aberdeen Central got a nice win against Roosevelt Tuesday night to kind of secure that 8th spot. So those are your 8 home teams for the SODAC 16, but the seed points still are going to play itself out. So that's it for girls basketball. We'll have a lot more next week as we know who will make it into the SODAC 16 for girls AA, and we will have a look at the actual SODAC 16 brackets in girls B and girls A next week. Boys B and boys B, again, we got a game or so that these teams can play up until Friday, and a lot of times they reserve some of that time in case of weather and makeup times, but right now, just kind of looking at Class B, the interesting region to me is Region 2B. You've got Castlewood, you've got Wessington Springs, Wolsey-Wessington, right now with Esteline as the top 4, and then you've got DeSmet, traditional favorites who have come on strong and played some really good basketball as the 5 seed. So you got 5 potential state tournament type of teams where you're only going to get 2 of those teams in to the state, possibly into the state tournament. 2 will have a chance to go into the SODAC 16. So I'm looking at 2B. We'll get much more into that next week. In Boys A, the top team in the class, Sioux Falls Christian, they've been very strong. Since that loss, remember we talked about last week, to Western Christian, they've averaged 82.5 points per game and given up 46.5 points per game in that week or so that they've played. They have been very good. Since that solo loss, they've been focused, back on track. Griffin Goodberry went over 1,000 career points. They've got a really good vibe about them right now, so watch out for Sioux Falls Christian. Rapid City Christian, another team in Class A that we got to talk about. They won back-to-back games on back-to-back nights against AA competition. They got a close win against Rapid City Stevens and then took it to Spearfish the very next day. And that, of course, those 2 games were right after beating the number 1 team in Class B. So they're playing teams outside the class, the best in Class B, and then 2 teams above them in Class AA, and absolutely getting it done. Rapid City Christian in a good spot as well as we enter postseason play. Hamlin, West Central, Vermilion, all those teams, 3 losses or fewer in the case of Hamlin, looking like contenders. Make sure you go check out Rich Winter's article on 605sports.com about West Central. This is a team that we probably didn't have projected into that top 5 at the beginning of the year that is doing very well and meshing very well at the right time. In Boys AA, again, these teams have until Friday to finish out their regular seasons. A couple teams have a couple games left. A couple teams are actually done with their regular season. But let's talk about Tuesday night. Brandon Valley. They came back from a 13-point deficit in the first quarter against Mitchell to get the win, 42-36. This team didn't have the lead until about 30 seconds left in the third quarter when Brandon Valley finally got the lead, but they switched to a zone defense after just getting attacked in the first few minutes of the game by Mitchell, and the defense played outstanding. In fact, Brandon Valley allowed just 19 points in the second, third, and fourth quarters combined. That is just over 6 points a quarter for a 3-quarter span. Nice job by the Brandon Valley defense. That broke a 2-game skid for them. Got a win against a ranked team. Brandon Valley heading in the right direction. Harrisburg, another team heading in the right direction. They are 12-1 since mid-January. Had that slip up to Rapid City Central, and I shouldn't say slip up. It was an overtime loss to a team playing very well in Rapid City Central, but now have had back-to-back wins against ranked teams over the last couple of weeks. 52-39 win against Brandon Valley and a 66-51 win over O'Gorman here just in the last 7 days. So Harrisburg, again, a team we're not talking a lot about, looking like they're playing some of their best ball here in the last week or so. And then Tuesday night, we had an interesting one, especially for seeding and potential home court advantage. T-Area went into the Washington gym. They got an important win there. They finished their first season in Class AA with a 10-10 mark. And then seed point-wise, currently they are number 9, just behind number 8 Washington. And if Washington slips up this weekend against Rapid City Central or Rapid City Stevens, T could move up into that top 8 and secure a home court game for the SODAC 16, potentially a rematch against Washington, who they just played last week. We've got a lot more on Class AA coming up next week after we kind of know what to expect in the SODAC 16. And again, each week we'll be previewing you as we get closer and closer to marking a state champion in all 6 classes of South Dakota high school basketball. Thanks again for joining us on Inside the 605. It has been my pleasure. I can't wait to talk more basketball with you next week. We'll see you then.